Hey everyone.
Unmuted.
Afternoon. Thank you so much for joining our first Tech Thursday. Very exciting. So Chris and I have been talking a couple weeks ago about how we would love to have more of an opportunity to get in front of folks just like you that use Infrascale products and might be seeking more knowledge. And I'm still hearing some breathing, so I'm
Muted.
everybody again. So this is Tech Thursday. Think of it as like a virtual user group. So this is going to be an opportunity for you to come together with other user
Unmuted.
products to meet with the Infrascale team. We're going to have Chris Bayne, Chief Solutions Architect, on each one of these. So he's going to be sharing with us some updates, some tips and tricks, and we're going to be walking you guys through a couple things to just overall make your experience with Infrascale just that much better. So we appreciate you guys joining. Chris, actually, let's go through some intros. So guys, I'm Kelly Gittelsberger. As you see there, Partner Success Manager. I cover the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic with my teammate, Carl Bierke, in the East. And then, so I've been here 2 years almost. Little known fact, Chris and I actually started on the same day, June 1st. So our 2-year anniversary is almost coming up. Chris will have to go grab a social distancing lunch or have a virtual coffee or something together. I reside just outside of Orlando, Florida. There's a little pocket of our sales team that is here. So we have a regional office out here. But yeah, I enjoy working for Infrascale and putting on events like this. So Chris, why don't you introduce yourself? You're the star of the show today.
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Chris Bayne. I've been doing backup and disaster recovery and failover stuff for a little over 20 years now. So, I initially started when we backed up the tapes, we put them in a truck, and we sent them off to a place. And if anything bad happened, we made a phone call, and they brought them back. All the way through the evolution of now, where Infrascale's at, where we have this appliance that can back everything up and replicate it, and you can boot on the appliance, and you can boot in the cloud, and you've got all this flexibility now. Not only have I talked about disaster recovery, I was actually in New York when 9/11 happened, and I helped 2 major companies recover from data center losses. So I've talked about it, and I've been through an actual disaster recovery. So I'm not just, a sales engineer kind of guy. I have been working with Kelly for a while. We came from our previous company together. That's how we ended up with the same start date. We both like the technology, and we enjoy working together so much we came here together. Hopefully today is going to be a fun kind of look at what Infrascale has to offer. We're going to pull back the curtains a little bit and show you some stuff that's coming out, show you some stuff you might not know about that's already out, and we'll talk a little bit about how you guys can get more educated on what Infrascale is doing. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into a little bit of content here. Now,
Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, the first thing we're going to jump into is we're going to look at the appliance sizing form. So me and Kelly have been here, like she said, for about 2 years. And the time we've been here, it's changed from an Excel document we sent out that some of you guys who've been with us for a while might remember filling those out and then emailing those in to we then went to an online form you could fill out and pick and choose things. And now we actually have something integrated into our website. And I think with each iteration, it's gotten a lot better, a lot easier, a lot more informative, and definitely make sure that we have the right data, that we can make sure we size things right for our customers. Then we'll jump into a live demo where we'll look at the 8.0 firmware that's coming out at the beginning of next month, so we can see what's new there and take a look at that. We're going to also look at some updates in the dashboard. So maybe some stuff that you knew was there, maybe some stuff that you didn't know was there. Then we're going to take a look at some of the YouTube resources that we now have available. We'll talk about some of the things that are coming to that shortly. And then, of course, we're going to have a live question and answer session at the end. But if anyone has any questions now, shoot them out there in any of the chat forums, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, or GoToMeeting, and we'll go ahead and answer those as they come up. Again, this is designed to be kind of an interactive social session for you guys, so want to make sure that you get the most out of it since you're the ones attending it. Let's go ahead and jump into looking at that modern sizing form.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And I just want to elaborate on something you said a few minutes ago. So when you and I started, this was just an Excel spreadsheet, and one of our engineers had to manually go through, and next thing you know, there's multiple copies floating around, and as most of you can imagine, it was just kind of a pain. So this sizing form is important. When you have a new sales opportunity, so this is obviously for our disaster recovery offering, the appliance to cloud model. When you have a new opportunity, in addition to a deal registration, the sizing form is very important. That's going to let us know which appliance you need, both at the primary and the secondary. So Chris, let's take a tour through here.
Sure, and we've definitely got a link out there that we're going to throw out there for you guys. We'll put it in the different chats. It'll also come as a follow-up if you guys are attending and we have your email addresses. So it's infrascale.com/draz-sizing. And then when you get there, you just go ahead and click Get Started. And that's going to pop up. Here's a nice little video that goes over exactly what this solution does. And then next, of course, the first question we've got is, are you a customer or a partner? So Kelly, which way do we want to go down here?
I'll be a partner today.
All right, we'll be a partner. So when we come in, we're going to ask what the partner is. So we'll say this is Kelly Inc. We're going to say Kelly G.
Is that because you can't spell my last name?
Well, that, and it's a little bit shorter than your last name. So when we first started working together, her last name was Raw. So that was really easy to type out and remember. And then since then, she's upgraded it to Kindlesberger.
Just added 10 letters.
So now, because we've said we're a partner, it's going to ask, what's the customer's name? So we'll say I'm the customer. And then it's going to ask us where we are in the U.S. or in the world. So here we'll go ahead and we'll say that we're in the Southeast.
And Chris, let's elaborate on why this is important. So team, by you selecting the proper geography, that's going to basically route this form. So that way when it gets sent, so like I said earlier, I cover Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. If you check one of those, this is going to get routed to myself and my engineer.
Correct. And Carl, so the whole team gets it. So that is part of the joy of this, is when you pick the right region, it's going to send that information to that whole team so that we can get the quickest response back to you. Now here next, are we collecting data from more than one location? The reason why this is important is, standard, there's one location we're collecting data from, but sometimes with larger customers, they might have multiple sites. So that's typically where we deviate from the standard sizing doc, and we know that, all right, we need to have a conversation. We need to find out how much data is at what locations, and potentially you're going to have multiple appliances, or we just need to make sure that we're configuring it right for you. So this is one of those places where, depending on this answer, we know if we need to have a conversation to size it out correctly, or if it kind of fits into a default configuration. So for this one, we're only going to be collecting from one location. And then here we want to know where we're shipping the appliance to. Sometimes we have partners that they want the appliance shipped to them. Other times they want it shipped directly to the customer. So it's important for us to know where we want this appliance to land so that we know where it is for you guys to go out there and set it up. So here we'll say we'll send it to Chris's house. Now next, this is an important question. So Kelly, how much data are we collecting here?
Just under 2 terabytes.
All right, so if we look here, when we ask this question, we're asking for it in gigabytes. And we're telling you that 1024 is that. So we're going to say 2048, or that should have been a 2. 2048 for 2 terabytes. Now this is going to be all the data that we're collecting from physical, from virtual, from NAS devices, but it's only the data that's in use. So if you have a virtual machine that's got a 500 gig hard drive and you're using 5 gigabytes, we're only going to hit you up for that 5 gigabytes that's actually in use. Now next we're going to ask, if you want it to be rack mounted or desktop. Now, this becomes important because a lot of smaller customers, they might not have a rack, and they might not want a server. You know, servers, especially at the lower or smaller size servers, they're particularly loud. They're 1U with really loud fans. There's a chance that you might not want that. You might want to get the desktop model, which is super quiet. I actually have one sitting next to me running right now, and I can't even hear it. So this does give you the option to pick from rack mount or desktop. So here we'll say we want desktop. And then what's your year-over-year data growth? You know, do you grow 10%, 20%, 30%? Industry standards right around 30%. So that's typically where people are at. But there are some companies that are growing less than that. And there's some companies that are expanding like crazy, and they're growing 50% or more. Next, and this one I find to be interesting, me and Kelly come from an enterprise backup company before this, where I covered like large banks and enterprises, and they all did backups where they did fulls on the weekend and incrementals throughout the week. And that's just kind of the industry standard when you're backing up, petabytes of data. Now, when I come here, a lot of people like to back up things more frequently. So, you can choose, I want to back it up once a day, every 4 hours, 8 hours. But again, this is let us know how many copies of that data you're going to have sitting on top of that appliance, so we can help size it out and make sure you've got the resources and the storage to be able to hold all of that. Now, the first one is, of course, how frequently do we want to back up? The next one is how long do we want to keep those backups? Now, depending on regulations, you see 7 years in there. That's because HIPAA and a lot of other ones have certain regulations out there that are important. I think CGIS is 99 years. Pharmacies are 30 years after they stop selling the product. So there's definitely a lot of variance in here on how long we're going to be able to keep or be keeping data. I'll go ahead and just say 1 year. But again, that's going to be that service level agreement between you and your customer on how long you want to keep that data. Now next, we're going to ask, how long do we want to keep this data in the cloud, right? So we're going to be backing up this data locally and storing it, and then we're also going to be storing it in the cloud. And some people, they like to keep, 30 days worth of data locally, because that's how long they typically see restores happen within that first 30 days. And then maybe I'll keep 6 months or a year in the cloud. Other people, they do the exact opposite. Well, I'm only going to use the cloud if I need to boot. So instead of archiving to the cloud, I'll just keep a month in the cloud, and then I'll keep a year on-prem. But it's up to you on how you want to configure this. But this is just so we know, again, on the local and the cloud, how much storage we're going to need to have out there. Now, this is an important question, and this is a question that in my career I've seen switch from 100% physical to a lot of people being 100% virtual. So here we want to make sure that we're putting it in. For the sake of this, I'm going to say 50-50, but I know that at this point most customers are mostly virtual, and some are actually fully virtual. Now, one thing to note here is to make sure that your OS and hypervisors are supported, if you click there, it's going to bring you over to the docs website, which we're going to hit a little bit later and go more in depth into, but that's going to give you that SCL, HCL, so you can make sure that the software and the hardware that we're going to be protecting are all supported. Now, one thing that I like about this setup now is if you say you're 100% physical or virtual, it's not going to ask you questions about the opposite, right? It's not going to ask you questions for stuff that aren't in your environment. That's why I picked 50-50, so we could show all the different questions that are going to be out there. So here, what hypervisor you're going to be running. We'll say we're running VMware in this particular case. Is it the free version of VMware? You might wonder why we asked that. Again, if it's the free version, we back it up a little bit different than if it's the Essentials version or any of the licensed copies. So we'll say, no, it's not the free version. Next, what databases are we protecting? And again, we're asking this because we have database integration within our product. So if you're going to back up SQL or Exchange, we're going to want to know that. So we'll say we're backing up SQL. And then we have a couple different ways we can back it up. We can back it up as a DR image. We can back it up as an agent. Or we can do the traditional kind of method where you're dumping it out to the file system, and then we're sweeping by and collecting that data later. Now for this one, I'm going to go ahead and just do the DR image backup. Now next, again, the magic of where we've gotten to with being able to protect things here is now we can boot stuff up on top of the appliance. Well, this question is asking us locally, how many things do we need to boot on top of this appliance? How many machines? Now, locally, you're typically not going to be booting that many machines, right? You're only going to boot 1 or 2 machines that have typically failed, as opposed to when we go to the cloud, we're going to be booting up all those critical servers that we have that we need to run. So in this case, we're going to boot 1 or 2 servers in case we have a failure. And that's going to take, we'll say, 32 gigs of RAM. And maybe they've got 8 cores out there. Now when we look at the cloud side, well, are we going to Infrascale's cloud? Are we going to a public cloud? Are we going to a colo? Are we going to a second data center that maybe the customer owns or that the partner's providing to be able to boot things up? Most of the time, it's the Infrascale cloud. We don't charge for ingress, egress, all those fun things. So typically the Infrascale cloud's where people end up. Next, we're going to ask, all right, well, in the cloud, how many machines are we going to need to boot? So here, I'm going to say 3 to 5, just because, I have more machines, more resources I'm going to need in case my site's down to be able to boot up. And again, it's going to ask us for our RAM, so I'll say 64 in this case. And it's going to ask us what that CPU workload is. We'll say 16 cores. And now it says thank you. But one last step, you got to make sure you hit that submit button. If you don't hit the submit button, it's not going to shoot out that email to us and send us that PDF that lets us know all the information that you guys filled out. So just make sure you hit that submit button. You get this submitted successfully, and we're good to go.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris, for walking us through that. I did just get a message through chat saying, I have the old Excel sheet. Can I still use that? I think I think we should probably use the new form. We've even got some additional questions on there, right, Chris? Since the Excel sheet was out there, I don't even think we were offering ID or local when the Excel sheet was out.
We've definitely updated it. We've changed the questions. We've streamlined it. Of course, if you want to use the spreadsheet, I don't think we're going to necessarily say no. We can always go through and enter the data from the spreadsheet into the web form if you want to, but the web form is definitely going to be the quickest and most efficient way to get that information back.
Yes, thank you. Well, thanks for walking us through that. Another question I just got through the chat is, when does the 8.0 release come out? So I think that's a perfect segue, since we were going to take a sneak peek into 8.0 and the new UI. You want to go ahead and do that now, Chris?
Sure, absolutely. We can jump into that. So let's go ahead and jump back to the demo screen here. 8.0 is coming out at the beginning of next month. So, well, it really depends. Right now, actually, 8.0 is in the hands of internal. We're doing some QA. We're doing testing, all that stuff. Once the release to manufacturer comes out, it's going to roll out to the NFR appliances. So if you happen to have an NFR appliance, you'll get an earlier release, or you'll get the release before customers. That way it can sit on the NFRs, and we can kind of have a public testing of it. And then once it's been on the NFRs for a certain amount of time, we'll start a staged rollout to customers. But it should be available to everyone the first week of next month. Now, the first thing you might notice right here, if you ever log into your appliance directly, this screen's been updated. It looks a lot different than the old login screen. So if we go ahead and go here, we can log into this machine. And now the biggest thing you're going to notice about the 8.0 upgrade here, or update, is that it looks a lot cleaner, right? It looks a lot more like the dashboard. It looks a lot more refreshed, a lot more updated than the old version of the web interface. Now, that being said, we've got a bunch of other stuff that we've added into it. We're now using Ignite, which is our homegrown backup engine. So we've actually switched from using a standard backup engine to using the Infrascale backup engine for any of the physical clients that we're backing up. We actually released it last year, but now we've switched it to be the default. So that's one of the changes that we've done here. Another thing that we're doing is with our backup engine, and this is just for physical machines, we are changing what we support for bare metal. So we're finally dropping Windows XP 2000, 2003. I don't think that's a shock to anyone, but if you need to use those, you can always use the old version of the backup agent, and we're still going to support those for a while. But as of the next release, we're dropping support for all the stuff pretty much Microsoft has already dropped support for. Now, a couple things that I've been asked for over time by a lot of the customers. Let's go ahead and look at one of these clients. Now, if we scroll down here, we're going to notice something. Boot verification is now enabled per client, and timing is per client. So, say you've got a customer that's got a bunch of machines, and we know some of them are going to fail boot verification because they're old machines and they're not supported. Well, we can uncheck them in here now so that we're not trying to boot verify something we know is going to fail. And we can still do boot verification on things that we know are going to work. So the fact that we've dropped it down to the individual client level, that's something that I've had a lot of requests for. Another thing that we've done is we've really cleaned up the alerting. So previously, if you were replicating something and a file wasn't done replicating, when it did a check on it, it would basically say it failed, even though an hour later you'd have a green checkbox and everything was good. We've cleaned a lot of that up. So you're going to notice there's going to be a lot less false positives that go away automatically, of course, but now they're just never going to show up as a false positive. We went ahead and adjusted a lot of that and corrected some timings so that you're not going to get those false positives. Now, one thing that I like about, not only have we cleaned it up, so everywhere we look, things look a lot cleaner. Even when we look at the alerting we're going to get, that's a lot cleaner. But we've also added into the support tab here. Now we can control our support tunnel. We can see we've got one up on this machine. Maybe we'll take a second here to talk about what that is. If you get into an issue where you need to do some troubleshooting, you can enable this, and that basically lets our support guys help you out with looking at logs and figuring out what's going on with your appliance so we can get you back up and running. Now, if we look down here, we can download the logs, we can pick certain logs, we can view those logs. So that, when support's like, hey, I need this log, it gives you an easy way to go ahead and grab them and send them over. And then this is my favorite part is you can now put in information, hit submit, and open up a support ticket right here. So if you're on the appliance of the customer, you got an error, go copy and paste that, put it in the comments, fill out the support ticket, hit submit, and now you've opened up a support ticket without having to go to the website or make a phone call or go to some chat. You can just do it straight from the appliance. Now, with that being said, there's one other area that I wanted to take a look at while we're talking about updates that are out there. I wanted to go ahead and take a look at the dashboard. So here we're looking at the Infrascale dashboard. Something that came out a little while ago that I'm not sure if everyone's had a chance to take a look at is in here we can now look at appliance hardware. What that's going to do is that's going to bring up all of our appliances we have out there. It's going to show us CPU usage, memory, RAID, the RAID status, replication. So it's really easy to see what's going on those appliances without having to log into them. And here we can be a little bit more proactive, right? We can see, all right, well, on Orlando app 2, we're up to 59% on our RAID storage. Well, maybe once that crosses 75, I want to go look at that and proactively do something before we get into a situation where maybe we've run out of storage or, actual errors or alerts start happening. So this lets us see what's going on and be more proactive. We can also set up alerting based off of this. Now, another thing that we've added, and I know this was requested a lot, if we say monitoring endpoints, and we look at boot verification, Here we can see Thor, one of my machines out there. We can see the machines it's backing up. So we can see that our last backups, we have all these green dots letting us know things were good. However, we did not have a successful backup last night. So I can go in and take a look at that and find out why. We can see our latest restore point on the primary and our latest restore point in the cloud. And then we can also see our boot verification. So that's now available in the dashboard. So I don't even have to go out to every appliance anymore and get that boot verification. Now, I know one question that's going to come out, especially with the fact that the new firmware is coming out, is one, if you have email alerts set up, you'll get an email letting you know that that's coming out. Two, if you come into the dashboard, we're going to see right here, this one knows there's a new version out. I can simply come over here and tell it to update the primary appliance. That's going to update that primary appliance. Once that's back online and good, it'll update the secondary automatically for me. And then I'm up and running on the latest version of the firmware on not only my on-prem and my cloud appliance. Now with that, I'll go ahead and open it up. Kelly, did you see any more questions come through?
I did, yeah, and Aaron actually answered it in the chat, but for those that are tuned in via Facebook Live or Google, or sorry, not Google, YouTube, I want to make sure that they hear it as well. So the question is from Martin. I had to tune out for a few minutes, but with this new reporting, how will it be integrated in legacy installations? Is this new reporting set up automatically, or is there anything the techs need to do? So I think he's asking, like, with the update.
Oh yeah, I was wondering if, since you said Aaron answered it, if you were going to read Aaron's answer.
I'll read Aaron's answer. So he says all settings are migrated into the new reporting platform. Yeah,
and so like you're not going to get the boot images until I believe you get to 7.1.1. So as you upgrade the firmwares on the appliances, they'll start publishing the additional information up to the dashboard.
Got it. Thank you.
Now, one thing
right.
Go ahead.
Chris, sorry, I did have one other question that was sent just to me. What other updates can we expect in the future? And is there a release schedule?
So we don't have a public-facing roadmap right now. We're actually working on, there's probably a lot to the answer to this question, but we're changing the way that our release schedule works. So we're going to be releasing dot releases on a more frequent basis. So we'll be adding new features, functionality, and stuff like that more frequently. I believe they're looking at like a 6-week-ish schedule for the dot releases. And then, you know, of course, if there's ever a security update, we'll release those as soon as we find out about it and we have a patch available. The full version releases are going to get spread out a little bit more, but we are going to be, I don't want to say more aggressive, but more frequently updating the solution. And that goes across the board for all of the Infrascale solutions.
Got it. Thank you. And Chris, we had one other question come through. The question is from Luke. Can failure notifications be suppressed until all retries have been exhausted in version 8?
I will have to take a look and see if that is something that they've updated.
Okay. So Luke, we'll make a note of that and we will follow up with you.
Now, with that being said, one thing I would like to bring up here is we can jump over and look at the docs.infrascale.com. So if we come over to that website, we can actually see here we've got the release notes. And that's got the release notes for all the different versions, when they came out, what was added, what was patched, what was removed. So as soon as 8.0 goes public, there will be release notes in here for 8. And you know, anything that we changed or updated like that would be here in the release notes.
Thank you. And Chris, Chris, do you want to answer a couple more questions now? I think we have some time now.
Sure, we can jump in.
Okay. Okay, so we had one come through from either Facebook or YouTube. It says, This new upgrade also requires an update on the client side, question mark. So does a new client version need to be downloaded?
So yes, however, with that being said, the client, you only have to push it out to physical machines or things that are actually running the agent. So once you update the appliance, it's going to automatically have the new versions on there. And actually underneath the properties for an individual machine, you can push out the backup agent there, or you can go out to the actual machine and install the backup agent as you always have before. So it does have an update. Again, like before, in the GUI, you're just going to see a little exclamation point that says that client's running on an old version. You should update it. Everything's going to work as normal, but when you get around to them, you can either update it from the client side or you can push it from the appliance side.
Thank you. And we've got one more from the chat from Kai. The question is, would you have some insights on backing up a 4K block Windows system?
That is something that has been addressed, so that is something that we can definitely take offline and talk specifically about. So if you want to send an email over to Kelly or me, I can send you the specifics around that. But yes, 4K blocks have been addressed in the 8.0 release.
Thanks, Chris. All right, looks like we're good on questions for the moment. So why don't we keep going, and as the questions come in, we'll answer those.
Excellent. It's good to have a good interactive crew out there. So I just wanted to quickly go over, just in case you haven't seen the architecture in front of you in a while, how the disaster recovery product works, and a little bit around why we do ask some of those specific things when we're doing sizing. We've got our local site where we've got physical servers, virtual servers. You can even back up workstations and laptops. Funny story there. When I was working here, I'd say it was probably about a year ago now, Kelly, we were doing a demo, and my laptop that I actually do my demos from blue screen of death on me. So I just dropped off the call. So I had to jump on my Mac, jump on my appliance, boot up the last known good backup of my laptop on the appliance, remote desktop into that, reconnect to the meeting, and within about 5 minutes, I was back in the meeting to finish the demo, running on top of the appliance I was doing the demo from. So I can definitely attest that the solution works, and even in an emergency situation, I didn't run into issues there. So again, that's one of the things we can do that's great about this, right, is we can virtualize machines and spin them up on that appliance. So I like to think of it as DVRing your disaster. We're going to move it. We're going to get you back up and running in minutes, and then you can figure out what happened and do that restore. But not only do we do that, we encrypted, ship that data up to the cloud, and we give you the ability to spin things up in the cloud, and we give you orchestration in the cloud too. So like I said earlier, if we're booting in the cloud, we're probably booting most of our servers. Well, you want those to come up in a certain order. That's where we would look at setting up orchestration to make sure that we boot up the database server before the web server, or whatever order you need things to come online to have them come online successfully. Now, one more thing that we have here is these are the default appliances that we have out there for disaster recovery. But again, if we go back and we take a look at that website I was talking about, and we go up here and we say specification for disaster recovery, and we scroll down, here's the latest and greatest versions, including upgrades and things like that we've got out there. Now, when you do the sizing document, that's going to tell us which one of these that you're going to need. So it's not really, you don't need to know about this and go out there and pick this and choose this on your own. We're going to help you with that. But just in case you wanted to know, all that's out here. The legacy models are out here. All the different supported hardware, software, hypervisors, all of that is out here and written up for you.
Hey, Chris, I want to address something really quick, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
A question that comes up pretty often on the sales side is, hey, I thought you just said that you license per protected terabyte per month. Why does it matter what appliance you're sending me? And it does matter which appliance we're sending you and which appliance we're putting on the quote, because depending on what you're looking to do for your client, perhaps you need a RAM upgrade, or you need a larger appliance at the primary, or a larger appliance at the secondary. That's going to be important for us to know. If there are upgrades needed, we're going to want to know that on the front end, so we include that for you on your quote. We absolutely do license per protected terabyte per month. It is very simple, but about 30% of the time, Chris, maybe that's about what I see. You think that's about the amount of time we see some type of upgrade needed?
Yeah, and like I said, if you go to that one website and see the current models, we actually doubled the RAM on them a couple months ago. So as we see industry things change, we're making changes. The other thing is, you know, that's part of why we ask, how frequently do you want to back up? How long do you want to keep it? And all that is to make sure that you have enough storage to be able to handle this. So if you're protecting 1 terabyte, we're not sending you a 1 terabyte solution. We're sending you something that should be able to be in your environment for the next 3 years, be able to protect it so that they can grow with it, because, you know, it's no fun to swap out hardware every 6 months or every year. So we're going to send you something that's going to be a little oversized in the beginning, but they should grow into it over the next 3 years.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris. All right, let's check our chats. All right. Oh, I see one that just popped up. This one's a little off topic, but I do appreciate it because this comes up quite a bit. Do you have a SE, so sales engineer, since we live in such an acronym world, SE certification program? Chris, can you expand on that?
So that's one of the things that was actually coming up here for us to talk about. So yes,
Perfect.
we currently don't have a SE certification program. We do have one in the works. We're actually going to have 2 different levels of training. So right now we have a training that's kind of a refresher. So maybe you've been working with Infrascale for a little while and you just want to find out what's new, talk about best practices, that kind of stuff. We're going to have a training that's led by pre-sales for that. And then we're also going to have a training that's more of the, I want to be a system administrator, I need in-depth troubleshooting, I need to know the nitty-gritty, and then I want to get that certification I can frame and hang up in my cubicle or my office. So that one is coming down the line. It should be here this year to actually get Infrascale certified. If you need the refresher training, just reach out to your reps and we can set that up and get that done now. So that would be with one of our SEs, and they'd be able to bring you up to speed on the dashboard, direct-to-cloud, iCab, DRAS, whatever Infrascale solutions that we're offering.
Thanks, Chris.
Now, with that being said, one thing that we are doing, let's go ahead and bring up our YouTube. Now, for everyone on the call, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube, go ahead and do that. So that way you'll get notified whenever new videos go up. So whether they're technical training videos or they're one of these live events, you'll get notified.
They'll see us a few times on there, won't they, Chris?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So
last year we did a lot of themed webinars where.
Oh yeah, you can see us down here with our Halloween one with the pumpkin.
Yes. Yep, we had a Christmas one on there. I had some sparkly light up earrings. So we had fun with it, but we're just really trying to stay in front of you guys to bring you, the latest info on Infrascale. So, and that's why we're here today.
On our playlist, right now we just added Tech Thursday. It's our first one, so there's not anything in there. As soon as this is done, it'll get published into Tech Thursday for replays. Then we've also added Tech Tips here. So if we look at Tech Tips is going to be where, anything that is around new information. Here's disaster recovery 16.17 when that came out. There's one in here for the firmware for 7.0. There's going to be one in here for the firmware for 8.0. Any new product releases are going to go in here. And the one that's going to be in there later on, hopefully tonight when it gets done rendering, is one for deploying the Infrascale virtual appliance. So a step-by-step guide from requesting it, downloading it, deploying it, turning it on, configuring it, all the steps that you need to go through to get that appliance up and running. And again, hopefully later tonight, that one will be added to the tech tips. If not tonight, it should definitely be there by the weekend.
And I've got one other one on your honey-do list, Chris. Don't forget my one for
There is. There's going to be one for iCab and how to configure it with Box and recover stuff from Box. So again, it's going to be a mix of tips and how-tos across all of our different solutions, especially highlighting most requested stuff. So if there's something you want to know how to do, absolutely shoot us an email, let us know, or anything that's new that we have rolling out. We're going to make sure we have it in there. So not only will it be documented on Docs, so some people like to read, and that's how you get your information. I like to watch a YouTube video, maybe while eating dinner. So that's the category I'll be working on for you guys.
Excellent. Well, Chris, is there anything else you want to cover before we turn it over to questions?
I think content-wise, we've hit all the high notes that we wanted to. So let's go ahead and see if we've got some questions out there.
Excellent. And okay, so I do see a question that just popped in, but I want to add, Chris and I are actively working on the next couple Tech Thursdays. It'll be the same kind of format, so we'll hop on for maybe 45 minutes or an hour, and it'll be a time for us to share content with you, new things, updates, tips, tricks, demos, and answer your questions. Something that would be greatly appreciated is if there's stuff that you're wanting to learn about, feel free to shoot that to myself or to Chris, and we'll make sure and cover that in the future. Or if you have any other feedback for us, I mean, we want to get better, just like probably everybody else. So we would love to hear that from you. All right, so let's dig in here. We've got a question here. All right, this chat box only gives me a tiny, tiny little reading pane here.
All right, well, while you read that.
Okay.
I was going to say, one other thing that we are looking to add coming up is we're going to have special guests come on. So whether it's the head of product for any one of the products or all products, or the head of marketing, or we'll bring Russ, our CEO, on. But we definitely want to bring on some of the power players here at Infrascale, and make sure that you get time to talk with them and hear what their vision is and where we're going, and get a chance to interact with them and ask them some questions.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so Chris, this is a long question, which is fine. I'm just going to try to, like I said, the reading pane is so tiny. Okay, so this is John from Codero. John, thank you so much for joining today. All right, so they have some appliances in the data centers and on premise for all their clients. Lots of success. That's great to hear. And I know Margie takes good care of you guys out there, my teammate. All environments have a primary network interfaces for public transport, which is no issue as the appliance can bridge to it. The issue we face is that many bare metal hosts that we need to stand up as a VM in failover scenarios will actually require a secondary bridge. In some cases, VMware environments, a third and fourth bridge to reach storage and other internal networks on different physical interfaces is ideal. I think we're almost done. Where the UI is only focused on the primary interface historically, we have successfully enabled additional bridges with Versh updates as to the guest. Are there any plans to expose options for the VM boot process, meaning web-based user interfaces, to expose additional underlying bridges that can be selected during a DR boot? I think that question, that has more words than some of my daughter's books.
I love.
That was great, John. We appreciate that. Thank you for setting that up. That was great. No, John, don't apologize. That was great.
I do love that it's.
You have to answer it.
It's a really long question with a really short answer. Yes, it's on the roadmap. Having multiple NICs configurable via the product interface without having to do anything special is definitely on the roadmap. It's definitely a well-requested feature. There's a little behind-the-scenes work stuff we're doing to make that easier. So they're working on that right now, and as soon as they get done, we can, I don't know that I like this term, but productize it and put it in the GUI so it'll be easier to configure.
All right, that sounds good. All right, I don't see any other questions. I don't see that I've missed any. I'm certainly not going to unmute 95 people. That would be quite some entertainment.
That could be interesting,
actually,
yeah.
That would be actually great entertainment. I'm not going to do that. However, if you would like to unmute yourself, you certainly can. But first, looks like Luke has another question. Hey, Luke, what's the max data size limit that the appliances can hold? And do you have any guidelines on the max number of VMs or ESXi hosts Infrascale can support?
So the largest customer that I'm working with is around 1,600 VMs. So that's a ton. But that is across, I believe they're on 10 appliances. So we do have the workload spread across that way. As far as backing them up, by default, the appliances are going to back up 1 VM at a time, or I'm sorry, 2 virtual machines at a time. But in that one particular customer, we've turned that up to 10 per appliance, and they're not seeing any performance issues. Typically, when I'm working with someone, we'll crank it up to at least like 4 or 5 and not see any issues. But it really depends on how strong that ESX host is and being able to push that data. Also, if we're on gigabit or 10 gigabit. So everything from our, any of our rack mountable appliances come with dual 10 gig built in. So as long as we're on a 10 gig network, we can move data nice and fast. What was the first part?
Yeah, so the first part is asking, is there a max data size limit that the appliances can hold?
So if we look at the specifications, we can see what the largest one we have out there built is that you can get. But typically, before we get to that limit, we're actually going to go to multiple appliances over CPU and RAM, right? Typically, it's not the amount of storage that's the problem. So yeah, we can go up to 126 terabytes in one box. But again, once we get to that size, we really normally go to 2 boxes because then we can divide up the workload as far as RAM and CPU for booting on top of them. Now, with that being said, the other thing to think about, and I guess we didn't really talk about it on this call, is we do a block level dedupe. Now, when we do this block level dedupe, we're actually minimizing how much we're storing. So a while ago, this is probably about a year and a half ago, I wasn't even thinking, I saw it, and I saw that my protected space was bigger than the amount of space I had on the array that was stored. And I thought, that should be impossible. So I reached out to our product guy, and he's like, think about it, Chris. If we dedupe the data and there's similar VMs out there, we don't need to store everything, right? We just store the pointers. That's why we can actually have more protected storage than is actually sitting on the appliance. So it really depends on how unique all those VMs are. There's a bunch of things, but as you scale, dedupe becomes way more effective. So it's kind of hard to answer exactly, but our biggest appliance is 126 terabytes. But again, we normally divide that workload base for RAM and CPU before we get close to that.
All right, well, I don't see any other questions in the chat. Like I said, if you would like to unmute yourself, if you have any questions, we're happy to answer your questions.
All right. Everyone's being shy.
I don't think we have any other questions. But team, we really appreciate your partnership. We appreciate your business. We appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for joining us for our first ever Infrascale Tech Thursday. You can say you were there. So, keep an eye out. There will be future Tech Thursdays. Chris and I are kind of working on, how those invites go out. I know it's not super sustainable to send everybody an individual invite. So we're probably going to be leveraging Microsoft Forms in the future. But we will continue to go live on YouTube and Facebook, right, Chris?
Absolutely.
In addition to having it here. So, Chris, anything else you want to end with? This was your brainchild, so I'll let you wrap up.
No, I'm good. Again, all of these should automatically be posted to YouTube, to Facebook. So as far as you're not going to need to request a recording. It's just going to magically be out there for you. We are looking to do them every Thursday, potentially every other Thursday, until we get everything working correctly. So again, we'll reach out to you and we'll let you know. But we are going to have one next Thursday, right, Kelly?
Yes, we will have one next Thursday, and then I think we're going to do every other Thursday for the next couple of weeks. So,
and we'll definitely cover new content. If you guys have questions, shoot them in ahead of time. We'll be able to do some research if they're in-depth questions like we had one earlier. And then also we'll have special guests that will let you know who they are, so you can also talk to those people and find out more information.
Excellent. All right, Chris, thank you so much. Everyone, thank you for your time. I hope that you have a great rest of your week. Everyone stay safe and have a good rest of your day. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.